message to her daughter was on August 3rd, but it wasn't until earlier this week that she noticed the message sitting unread in her daughter's message request inbox. And that's when she decided to reply, pretending to be her daughter. The conversation started with how old she was, to which she responded, 13 years old, but the messages didn't stop there.
He asked me how much I weighed and how tall I was, which I thought was really odd. Then he asked me if I would video chat and to go into another room. I just couldn't believe that it was somebody I knew, and he's a well-known person in this community.
That mom says she allowed her 8-year-old daughter to have a Facebook to connect with family, but monitors it closely. The Cape Coral Police Department says this is an active investigation. The phrase butterfly ballot is enough to make any Florida voter get the shivers. Coming up, we'll take a look at Florida's not-so-spotless election history. One day left for early voting, but things are different this time around. To keep you safe, we're going to recap what you need to know before you go. And shots fired at a South Florida mall. An update on the victims as well as the suspects. Derek?
And we have a new tropical storm out in the Atlantic. We'll have the latest on Kyle. And of course, Josephine in the forecast coming up.
Nice.
Tonight, 2 people are coming forward accusing a man of going on a racist rant laced with profanity towards them. One of the victims posted the video on social media. Another person recognized the man from the initial social media video and says that she was verbally attacked as well. Fox 4's Leslie Delsbourg talked with the victims, who tell us that this was an encounter they could only imagine.
That's right. The video that you are about to watch is gruesome, but for one woman in Naples, she tells me it was all a reality, and she's lucky to be alive.
Am I supposed to be her?
Hey, how much is your life matter right now? Show me how much your life matters.
Why is that necessary?
This mace in your face.
Near the Collier County Courthouse along Airport and 41, last night around 7 p.m. heading home, one woman says she was approached by this man and decided to pull out her phone.
That's how much your life matters. Nothing.
The woman who asked to be identified as Mishu released this statement. I just want to bring awareness to the world that even when you're minding your own business as a black individual, we still get looked at and talked down upon. Even in Naples, Florida, this happens. I'm thankful to be alive. Mishu then decided to post the video to Twitter, causing the tweet to go viral. That's where Yuritsa Gary of Naples says she recognized this man in the video from a Facebook post she made August 6th. She claims the same individual verbally attacked her brother after he tried to step in to calm the screaming individual down.
The guy was yelling the N-word and saying, try to do something, try to say something and watch what will happen to you. Once my brother, went next to him and asked, told the guy to stop, he started yelling, N-words at my brother also. But it was mostly towards the elderly black man.
Her brother was unable to speak with us on camera, but he tells us in a statement, I have a family that depends on me, and I have too much to lose, because being a black man, no words can describe the pain you feel when you experience such hate. Many locals on Twitter recognize this man, claiming he is a local Grubhub delivery driver. We reached out to Grubhub to confirm, and they tell us, we are in the process of investigating this incident based on the speculation and will take necessary actions as appropriate, including terminating his contract and working with law enforcement if we find that he is one of our drivers. Naples police says they are working to get to the bottom of this.
We are actively trying to identify and investigate as to whether a crime occurred, and we will work in conjunction with the Collier County Sheriff's Office if need be to assist in any way if there was something that occurred in their jurisdiction.
The Collier County Sheriff's Office gave us the same response and posted to Facebook asking the public for information. Right now, Gary says for her brother's sake and others, this man needs to be caught.
These incidents are never just one incident. It's going to keep happening and happening until something happens to this person. And that's what we want to try to avoid.
And again, police are urging all community members, if you have any information, to please call. In Naples, Leslie Delaspore, Fox 4, in your corner.
Very disturbing. Thanks, Leslie. Florida's primary election is just a few days away, and not to mention ballots for the general election in November will start going out next month. Around the state and around the country, questions are emerging whether Florida will be at the center of ballot drama again. Joe St. George looking at the history of Florida's election controversy.
Around the country, Florida is known for its speeches, but in politics, Florida may be known for the jokes. Even TV sitcoms use it for laughs.
She knows me as a hanging Chad.
Florida's primary on Tuesday is once again testing the state's election system with a record number in many counties of vote-by-mail requests. And because of Florida's past, some are wondering, will election controversies emerge this year?
To understand why Florida is the butt of so many political jokes, you could start here at the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., where inside this painting depicts the first major Florida election controversy. Back in 1876, the presidential election was still undecided when Florida didn't know who to award its electoral college votes to. Congress had to step in, and Rutherford B. Hayes became president.
Selective hand recounts
in the entire state of Florida.
In more recent years, the 2000 Florida recount is still unforgettable for many, with George Bush eventually beating Al Gore. The recount took 36 days and was full of controversy. Palm Beach County's butterfly ballot resulted in 2,800 votes for Pat Buchanan instead of Gore because of where the candidates' names were located. The term hanging chads emerged to describe punch-hole ballots with paper fragments still hanging, and the confusion it made for recount officials. And the drama has continued since then. In Broward County in 2012, nearly 1,000 uncounted ballots were found in a warehouse a week after the election. And in 2018, also in Broward, election officials counted 22 ballots that should have been rejected. So will primary night this year bring more controversy? Election officials say no. We'll find out soon. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
The Democratic National Convention formally kicks off Monday, minus the cheering crowds, of course. Officials will give online video addresses that will play for 2 hours each night. Former Vice President Joe Biden will then formally accept his presidential nomination on Thursday. In addition to being the first online convention, Democrats will also make history when Kamala Harris formally accepts her VP nomination as the first Black Asian woman to run. With early voting underway for this month's primary election, we want to make sure you know exactly what to expect when you're going to vote, especially since early voting ends tomorrow, meaning your only other chance to vote in person will be on Election Day. That's coming up Tuesday. So no matter when you vote, make sure you wear your mask. All poll workers will be wearing a mask or a face shield. They'll also do regular cleanings, and they'll be implementing a no-touch system. If you still don't feel comfortable, the election office is encouraging you to vote by mail this year. The deadline to request a mail-in ballot for the primaries was last weekend, but there is still time to request one for the general election in November. That deadline is October 24th. You can make sure you register to vote when you go to registertovoteflorida.gov. Oh, let's look ahead at the rain. It is raining. Yes, it was raining, I should say, Derek. Things are now nice and dry.
It really was raining earlier today. Of course, with the rainy season, we depend on those showers and storms to kind of cool things off. And it looks like we'll see more of that in the weekend, although the timing is going to be a little different, and also the location of the most storms during the afternoon. I'll get into that in a second, but let's talk about the tropics first. And we still have Josephine that is out here still struggling with dry air and wind shear. It's trying, but just having a tough time with that environment. And then we had Kyle that developed this afternoon. This is Tropical Storm Kyle that is rapidly moving away from the U.S. East Coast, developed just south and east of Atlantic City, New Jersey earlier today, now moving well out into the Atlantic. So here's Josephine right now, winds at 40, and you see the track takes it northwest, then north, then northeast. So it's going to barely pass just to the east of Bermuda, but it should be weakening as time goes on, as it encounters that hostile environment. So again, not going to be a problem for any land areas. And the same thing with Kyle, rapidly moving out into the open Atlantic, should be eventually just become an area of low pressure by the time we head towards early next week. Forecast here for the weekend looks a little stormy during the afternoon, but plenty of sunshine in between. Had some showers earlier. Those are beginning to fizzle out. Temperatures now into the 70s and 80s. So we're going to start off the morning tomorrow in the mid-70s, some upper 70s in some areas, partly cloudy skies, mid-80s by mid-morning. and then low to mid-90s here for tomorrow afternoon under a mixture of cloud and sunshine. Past few days, we've had a southeasterly wind in the upper parts of the atmosphere and at the surface, too. That's why the storms are moving in this general direction. You can see how, as we put the loop into motion, how the storms kind of migrate in that direction. So that southeast wind helping to push the storms in that direction. Now watch what happens as we go into the weekend. These are the winds at about 10,000 feet, or at least between 10 and 15,000 feet, which is the steering level, if you will. What's helped steers the storms around. And notice here as we go through the weekend, we're going to have a southwest onshore wind. What does that mean? We're going to see storms developing near I-75 early afternoon and then spread inland. So instead of the coast seeing the most chance for storms during the afternoon, it's going to be inland areas that'll have the best coverage for showers and storms here for both Saturday afternoon and into Sunday afternoon. And this pattern looks to stick around all next week. Predictor kind of outlines that. Tomorrow morning will be partly cloudy. Could be a few showers offshore. Then as we get towards late morning, early afternoon, we're going to start to see storms developing along I-75. But notice where most of the storms kind of collect during the afternoon. Instead of near the coast, they're going to be a little bit farther inland due to that southwest wind flow aloft. So that change in the wind makes all the difference. Sunday morning, we could see some storms near the coast as the southwest flow really starts to take hold. And then those storms will gradually start pushing inland with the best chances closest to Lake Okeechobee on Sunday afternoon. So partly cloudy tonight, 77. Tomorrow, 93. Showers and storms in the forecast. Best chances late morning, early afternoon near I-75 and then inland during the late afternoon and evening hours. Seas running 2 feet, winds becoming westerly 5 to 10 knots with scattered thunderstorms in the forecast. Here's your 7-day forecast. And again, showers and storms continue. Coastal areas in the morning. Inland during the afternoon. From Sunday through most of next week, we'll start to shift back to an easterly flow by next Friday, with storms returning to the coast in the evening by the end of next week.
All right, thank you, Derek. Just ahead, the show's about to start. Details on a Fort Myers theater experience set to grace the stage. Does marijuana usage affect your job performance? The latest research just a few minutes away. A new study shows aspirin may contribute to faster growing tumors and lead to an early death from cancer. Researchers conducted a first of its kind double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial into aspirin and its connection to cancer. More than 19,000 adults involved in the study were followed for 5 years. They were all free from heart problems or physical disability at the beginning of the study. Both groups showed about the same number of people who developed cancer. The aspirin group showed a 19% higher risk of having a cancer that spreads. The group also had a 22% higher risk of having an advanced cancer. Marijuana use after work does not appear to impact job performance. Researchers at San Diego State and Auburn University spoke to 281 people and their supervisors. Workers were asked how often they use marijuana within 2 hours of starting work, during work, or 2 hours after work. They found workers who used marijuana after work did not show lower job performance. People who used it before or during their shifts did show a decline in their productivity. Curtains going up. The Broadway Palm Dinner Theater will reopen for its 28th season next Thursday with the Dean Martin Variety Hour. And you can enjoy a fun-filled trip back into time with this classic throwback to the old Dean Martin Variety Show. The theater is cutting back capacity to 50%, and there will be temperature checks, and guests are required to wear masks while not eating or drinking. Tables will be private and spaced out. Attendants will be serving guests at the hot buffets. You can go to BroadwayPalm.com for more information.
A battle is brewing over funding for the post office. I'm Ray Bogan with what lawmakers are saying about the impact it will have on the election coming up.
And a new grant helping to battle the opioid crisis, but in the communities that may be underserved. We're going to explore how.
Responsible gaming. Live from the station that's in your corner. You're watching Fox 4 News at 10.
President Trump is spending his weekend in New Jersey, but before he left, he revealed some of his positions on what could be in the next coronavirus relief bill. This as the Democrats blame him for the stalled talks. There's also growing concern about the U.S. Post Office and whether it'll be able to deliver all these mail-in ballots on time. Fox News correspondent Ray Bogan reports.
Democrats are holding this up.
As coronavirus relief talks stall, President Trump is trying to cast blame on Democrats. In a series of tweets, the president laid out what he is willing to fund and blames Democrats for holding it back. Democrats say not true.
This whole notion of not funding state and local governments is crazy talk.
One of the biggest sticking points for another relief package, funding for the Postal Service. President Trump now says if Democrats agree to some of his demands, he'd be willing to give the post office more money.
They give us what we want, and it's not what I want, it's what the American people want.
Friday night, Democrats took aim at Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. In a 10-page letter, they demand answers about changes to how mail is delivered. Rather than strongly advocating for the Postal Service's request for emergency funding, it appears that you are now using funding shortfalls, which are being aggravated by the president himself, to justify sweeping operational changes that experts warn could degrade delivery standards. Now, governors concerned about how their state's residents will vote are speaking out.
I hope Congress will work with the president to address his concerns and work together to build this into the next stimulus package.
Governor Gavin Newsom is adding California to the growing list of states expanding mail-in balloting and ballot drop-off locations. The Postal Service Inspector General is now investigating delays in service and other issues in response to inquiries from lawmakers. Ray Bogan, Fox 4 in your corner. Jane, back to you.
Thanks, Ray. An ex-FBI lawyer is expected to admit falsifying a document that was used as part of the inquiry into alleged Russian interference with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Kevin Kleinsmith's plea deal comes as prosecutors investigate the origins of the investigation by Robert Mueller. Kleinsmith is due to accept responsibility for altering an email used to obtain permission to wiretap a Trump campaign aide. A public memorial service held Friday in Houston for murdered Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen. A horse-drawn carriage took her casket to services held at her high school alma mater. Guillen's disappearance attracted national attention, and President Trump offered to help pay for her funeral. The 20-year-old went missing in April, but her body wasn't found until June 30th. Her case inspiring new legislation in Congress that would let service members file sexual assault charges to a third party. The people of Beirut have endured decades of war and hardship, and now last week's massive blast that destroyed much of the city. But the city's residents are determined as ever to rebuild. The blast badly damaged or destroyed thousands of homes and livelihoods, killing almost 200 and wounding over 6,000. The scars from that run so deep. The families sifting through the ruins say, like other scars, they will heal, and they refuse to give in to the political leaders they say have driven Lebanon into the ground. Governor DeSantis today suspended the sheriff of Clay County amid a year of investigation and intense scrutiny. Sheriff Daryl Daniels under scrutiny from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for more than a year after he was accused of ordering one of his deputies to illegally arrest his former mistress for stalking in 2019. She began a relationship with Daniels when she worked for him when they were both at Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and that affair continued after he was elected sheriff. Last month, Daniels drew criticism and praise after he posted a warning to outside groups who may be thinking of bringing violent protests to Clay County. He was up for re-election in Clay County. DeSantis' order strips him from the chance of coming up for office again. His remaining 5 opponents now carry on to Tuesday's elections. And we are learning more tonight about a shooting at the Pembroke Pines Mall. That's in Broward County. According to fire rescue there, 2 victims were injured. They went to the hospital as trauma alerts, however, both stable when they arrived. The shooting stemmed from an attempted robbery, is what we're being told, at a jewelry store inside the mall. Police and witnesses state the store owner opened fire during the incident. The coronavirus pandemic taking the spotlight in our societal concerns, but there's one epidemic that hasn't necessarily taken a back seat: opioid addiction. Last night we told you that Charlotte County is experiencing a sudden urge in opioid-related overdoses. This 4 in Your Corner follow-up, Michelle Quesada explains how a new grant now is helping to battle this crisis, but in the communities that may be underserved.
It's hard to talk over an issue that's affecting everyone, but healthcare providers say the pandemic hasn't wiped out the opioid crisis, especially in African American communities.
Being out of contact with family members who can observe how your life is changing. If there's a shift in how you're acting, if your home isn't as well kept as before. People observe this. Family members can observe these little nuances, and then they can say, hey, are you struggling? Do you need help?
At Pivot Treatment Center, the opioid crisis is still center stage.
Our community is underserved tremendously when it comes to information regarding substance use.
Tanya Young-Williams means the Black and Brown communities. That's why the Thomas Leroy Jefferson Medical Society is stepping up their efforts through a grant.
Over the years, attention of this epidemic has been focused primarily on white suburban and rural communities. Less attention has been focused on Black American communities, which are similarly experiencing dramatic increase in opioid misuse and overdose deaths. As an organization, as a Black organization, we understand that we need to be part of the solution.
The Medical Society is educating its physicians on clinical decision-making and what medication strategies can be taken with patients who have acute and chronic pain to reduce the impact of opioid addiction.
Well, the state of Florida was granted more than $26 million in March back in 2019 to fund similar programs. Straight ahead, an epic win for the world's biggest video game company. Not even a pandemic could stop them. In fact, it may have been to their advantage. And your child's attention span may be a concern as they head safely back to school. We'll gaze at the latest gadgets designed to compel and teach. And talk about your lines of defense. Caught on camera, a climber in peril, rescued by a team of heroes. In less than 2 weeks, tens of thousands of kids start up the new school year. Some in person, some through distance learning. As Ryan Hughes shows us, schools are unveiling new technology to keep kids engaged.
As you step inside Jeannie Alonso's classroom, the algebra and geometry teacher at Renaissance Charter School at Cooper City now has a new solution to solve the problem of students forced to learn from home.
It allows for them to stay engaged. It allows for them to want to stay logged on and complete assignments because they're also doing them with their friends.
Charter Schools USA, which operates 7 charter schools in Palm Beach County and 2 in St. Lucie County, has created a mobile classroom with state-of-the-art technology. Meet the OWL, a 360-degree camera that connects to a smartboard, allowing teachers to instruct students in the classroom and virtually at the same time.
Them being able to log in from home, seeing their teachers inside the classroom, being able to connect with the classroom, that's huge for us.
The OWL will follow the sound of the teacher no matter where they are in the classroom during their lesson. And once students return, the OWL will hear a student ask a question and then pop their picture up on the screen. Students learning remotely are able to follow along in real time.
This just allows for the student to be excited about coming online to class because they're coming to class.
The Renaissance Charter Schools in St. Lucie County are offering options, including students returning to the classroom. But in Palm Beach County, the year will begin online. So now teachers will be wearing a headset to hear a student's question from home right in their ear.
For a teacher to have these options is invaluable.
The technology is breaking down the walls of a classroom for students beginning an unprecedented new school year.
Firefighters across Florida, or California rather, Oregon and Colorado are still battling wildfires that have already destroyed thousands of acres. Containment numbers in all 3 states are still low and evacuation orders remain in place for those closest to the flames. So far, more than 90,000 acres have been destroyed in the 3 western states. They can certainly use some of the rain that we've been seeing, right, Derek?
That's certainly the case, Jade. It looks like we're going to continue to see these storm chances each afternoon. Very typical for the rainy season, so no surprises there. But the timing is going to be a little